Erev Tov, everyone. Yeah, good, thank you. Parsha begins with Yoakev Tishmil. Rashi already comments on the word Akev, that it's a play on words on the noun, which represents the heel of the foot. And it says that you should observe Tishmor mitzvos, shodom dosh ba'akeva. The type of mitzvahs that a person tramples upon, he puts his heel upon it without thought, without giving thought to it. This Rashi reflects a view of Chazal of the world generally. We read in Pirkei Avos that a person should not say it's a mitzvah kala ve'inah. It's a small mitzvah. It's not worthy of me. It's not that important. Shein ato yodeya matan schor and shom mitzvahs. You don't know how in heaven they judge things, what is considered important and what is considered less important. And therefore, a person has to be careful regarding even ideas and mitzvos that he feels them to be ordinary and unimportant. In other words, that they could be trampled upon. You have to guard yourself against that because they have a great importance. It's interesting how Chazal viewed the world far differently than scholars or historians. The Gemara says, for instance, that the Roman Empire was founded on the day that Shlomo HaMelech married Bas Paro. And that, so to speak, the Churban Bayis Sheni was already established and caused before the Bayis Rishon was built. Talking about 1,000 years later. And that viewpoint, that great things that affect the world, the Roman Empire, come from small things, personal things that could have been avoided. But that because of the fact that they were committed, Shodom Dosh Be'akevo, so therefore there come results even centuries and a millennium later that are harmful and destructive. Chazal asked a question. Nebuchadnezzar, who destroyed the first Beis HaMikdash, how was he zoche to 4 generations of royalty? He and his son, and then his grandson, Belshazzar, till they were, after the 4th dynasty, the Persians conquered and took over. What was the privilege? So when we look at history, we look at the world, we don't look at it that way. Nebuchadnezzar was an officer in the army of Sancheriv. Sancheriv was the great emperor of Babylonia who besieged Jerusalem but could not conquer it, but who nevertheless drove the Aseres Hashvatim into Galut and conquered most of the land of Israel. And when Sancheriv passed away, some say he was assassinated, Nebuchadnezzar became the emperor, and he is the one that built the glory of Babylonia and conquered Judea and destroyed the first temple. So the Gemara wants to know, what was his schus? How did he become? Which is a question that we don't ask in history. And it's very difficult to ask because there's so many things that really wouldn't make sense if we asked the question. Why was Stalin Zoche? Why was Hitler Zoche? How does that happen that these people? So the view of Chazal is that there are causes that they are associated with that they're not necessarily known or clear to us, but that those are the causes that drive the incident. So the Gemara says regarding the Nebuchadnezzar, for instance, that one of his tasks was that he was the personal scribe of the king Sancheriv of the emperor. And the king Sancheriv received a letter from the king of Judea, from Yoachim, and he was supposed to, it was like the diplomatic correspondence of the time. So he was supposed to answer in the name of the king of Babylonia to respond to the letter from the king of Judea. So he wrote that to your honor, the Malcha, the king of Judea, the representative of the great and holy God, because that was the, so to speak, the diplomatic nicety that you reference not only the human king, but you reference the culture and the religion of the country as well. Because that's what gave it diplomatic status. So the scribe wrote it, Nebuchadnezzar wrote it, and he gave it to the messenger to take it to the king of Judea. But before the messenger left, Nebuchadnezzar thought it. He said, perhaps I did not give sufficient honor in the title to the God of Israel, to the religion that they worship. So the Gemara says he took 4 steps to call back the messenger so that he could take the letter back and correct it. So the Gemara says that because of those 4 steps, that he intended to give honor to the God of Israel, he was privileged that he had 4 generations of royalty in his dynasty. And he and his son and his grandson and his great-grandson were all emperors of Babylonia. So that story is not going to appear in any history book. But that story comes to give us the reflection of how Chazal viewed the world. It couldn't be that it would be an accident that he would have 4 generations. And not only that, he's the one that destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. He's the one who's burning in hell. But it was a mitzvah kala. It was something, nobody thought about it. And he thought about giving greater honor. And because of that, heaven rewarded him. And Chazal say, Mibnei Bonav Shel Nebuchadnezzar, Lomdu Torah. Out of his family there came Gerim. And out of the Gerim came Talmidei Chachamim. So that there's a spark of eternity left in him. It's not left in him because he was the king of Babylonia. It's left in him because of something that was attached to doing a good deed, to an act of godliness, a small thing. We find that in the Chumash by Avraham Avinu, that he said to the king of Sodom, Avraham Avinu is a very wealthy man, but the king of Sodom offers him more money. He's going to give him the rechush, rachtein li et hanefesh, just give me back my people. You can have all the money. So that's the funny thing about money. It's one of the things that there's never enough. No matter how much one has, there never is enough. Honor is also goes into that category. There are certain things that the cup can never be filled. If that's the cup that you want to drink from. So Avraham Avinu said, Michut v'ad sroch now. I wouldn't take a string from you. I wouldn't take a shoelace from you. So a string, a shoelace, what it's worth, what? A grush, a penny, 10 agurot. But because he phrased it that way, because he said it in that lashon, so Chazal say that is where the Jewish people were zoche to the mitzvah of tzitzis, which is chut, and the mitzvah of tefillin, which is sroch now, the leather bond that holds the shoe together. Small things, seemingly inconsequential, that really don't have a great bearing on the great story that we're telling. The Chumash could have just said, Avraham Avinu could have said to him, no, thank you, I'm not taking anything. And he could have just said, the young people say, Ani Yasharti Avraham, that I made Avraham wealthy, because it was enough. Why did it have to say those items? And Chazal wanted us to know that because he said those items, we have mitzvahs with those items. And those items have been elevated. So that tzitzis is not just strings. And tzitzis is just not pieces of leather. They're elevated to a spiritual status, to an eternal status. So that is one of the ideas that Rashi has in mind here when he makes this small comment. That Ekev is mitzvah shodom dosh ba'akeva. It's the mitzvah kala that we overlook, or that even if we fulfill, we don't think we did a great thing. We don't realize she'ein ato yodei amantat zchorim shel mitzvahs. Mitzvahs are of inestimable value. There's no way for us to judge them. Therefore, Chazal say, mitzvah shebola yodcho al tach mitzveno, a mitzvah that you have in hand to do it. Don't say, I'm saving myself for a bigger mitzvah. Mitzvahs are the opportunities of lifetime. They're the gifts that God gives us. So therefore, that's why the Parsha of Ekev, those 3 words, and it's a repetition of what God said about Avram. Ekev asher shoma Avram b'koli. Because Avram was aware of Ekev, of the small things. So therefore he became the great Avram. So too in all the mitzvahs and everything that Klal Yisrael does. So there are no small things. There are always opportunities. And because we grasp the opportunities, we can achieve the blessings that the Torah promises us. Rabbi Chananya ben Akash Omer, Ratzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'zakos es Yisrael, v'fichach hirba lahem Torah mitzvos, shenemar Adonai chavei tzman tzidko yavim v'lo yavim.